Sorry. Good evening, students. So hopefully I'm audible. Is problem
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Okay, chal. So I mean, like first, initially, the first class, every class we start with introduction. So adanala today we'll try to cover antenatal history taking. And if possible, we'll go ahead and give you a briefing about antenatal examination. What is antenatal care and all those things. So maybe if one or two people can, volunteer and answer me, it will be more better. It will be an interactive session so that it will not be boring. Okay, ma. So my voice is clear. Any problem with that?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay, chalo. So first one, okay. First, when you go for an antenatal examination, like once you have finished your history, you are going to face your examiner. Okay, so that is where you have to know what all you have to speak. So the initial part will be you introduce yourself both to the patient as well as to your examiner when you present. So that will be the basic role, first thing which you do. Okay, ma. So second one is patient's name. Patient's name along with the husband's name. Why should you know the patient's name? Why should we ask for the patient's name?
Identification.
Why should you have the husband's name?
Same identification.
Persons with the
Yeah, sometimes you can
name.
have two pregnant women with the same name. So we need not have any confusion. So you always address the patient with her husband's name so that there is no confusion with that. The second thing which you're going to ask is age. Why should you ask the age of the patient? What is
Age-related
the
complications.
yes? What is the what do you mean?
Elderly primary or teenage pregnancies.
Yes. So what are all the complications you expect with the teenage pregnancy? So teenage is up to what age? 19. Okay, wherever teen is there. So till 19 we call it as teenage pregnancy. So what are all the complications you anticipate in a teenage pregnancy?
Anemia.
Yes.
Low birth weight, preterm.
Low birth weight, preterm labor, and
Anemia, abortions.
yes, anemia,
Development
abortion,
of preeclampsia.
preeclampsia. Yes, so preeclampsia is more common with primies and it is also more common with the extremes of age group. That is either it can be a young woman or it can be elderly. In both ages, your preeclampsia is more common. What is the one important thing which you have missed?
CPD.
Yes, excellent. Why should a CPD occur with a teenage pregnancy?
Adequacy of pelvis.
Yeah, your pelvis is not very well developed. Okay, a female growth, it takes some more years. So when she's 18 or 19, her pelvis is not yet well developed. So that is why she can have CPD. Okay, so now coming to elderly. What is the age criteria to say that is elderly primary?
More than 35.
More than 35 years. Very good. So what are all the complications you expect in the elderly primary?
Again, anemia, miscarriages, GDM,
Yes.
preeclampsia.
Okay.
Genetic abnormalities.
Yes. So do you say genetic or do we say anything else?
Chromosomal
A little
anomalies.
excellent. We
Downs.
call it as
Downs.
chromosomal abnormalities. Okay. So usually after that aneuploidies are more common. What is the most common aneuploidy in an elderly women?
Downs.
Down syndrome. So Down syndrome is trisomy 21. So most common is Down syndrome and chromosomal abnormalities are more common. And because of that, you will have more amount of miscarriages. Anemia is also there. Preterm labor can be there. And more important is associated diabetes and hypertension in an elderly woman, not GDM and preeclampsia, which is pregnancy induced. They can be already diabetic. They can be already hypertensive. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So fine. So now after age, what do you want to ask? Address. Why do we need to know the address of the patient?
Certain diseases are common in particular areas, like for example, hookworm infestations, any anemia
Hookworm with
prevalence.
area
Anemia prevalence, ma'am?
more common, like now in the pandemic, you know, if they are from certain areas, we know your COVID is there prevalence, similar like that. So you know your dengue, you know your malaria. So that only. Hookworm is very, very, like I don't think any particular area you can point out and say hookworm is common in this area. Correct?
Okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So certain diseases are prevalent in certain areas. So you like to know the area. And also to assess the distance the patient has to travel to meet the hospital. For example, if a patient has a complication. So whether to admit her and have a in-house hospital treatment or to have a daycare basis. She can come and take the medicine and go, depends on where she stays. Correct? For example, your patient is a heart disease patient. Okay? And she's traveling 3 hours to come to your hospital. So what period of gestation will you like to admit this patient? Simple question. Heart disease patient. Depending on the severity, if she is having severe heart disease, you will like to have her nearby because she has to travel a long distance. So you'll admit around 28. Okay. So this is like, see, I didn't make a lot of slides. We'll be doing a lot of talking and just the examination. I could not bring the patient. So I'm just giving you the examination slides alone. Okay. Fine. So socioeconomic status, you have already studied in your SPM books. I'm not going to go in detail. You're going to know that. So what are all the diseases which is prevalent in low socioeconomic group? Poor patient. What all they can have?
Anemia.
Anemia,
Preeclampsia.
preeclampsias, abruption
Rheumatic heart
placenta,
disease.
preterm labor,
Rheumatoid
rheumatoid
heart
arthritis, IUGR, nutritional deficiency, IUGR, and which may lead to IUD. Yes. Highest socioeconomic status. What are all the diseases which is prevalent there?
Hypertension, diabetes,
Obesity, excellent. Diabetes, hypertension,
prolonged
then
pregnancy.
yeah, prolonged pregnancy. So they may have like operative deliveries, CPD, big babies, macrosomias. So which results in CPD, operative delivery, and PPH. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So now coming to gravida, para, life, and abortion. Very, very important. This is the only thing which differentiates between the other, like histories and your obstetrics. So let us define everything. What is gravida?
Number of times she's pregnant irrespective of the outcome.
Yes. One more word.
Including the present
Including the present pregnancy. So number of times the patient is pregnant, including the present pregnancy, irrespective of the outcome. So what all do we add in gravida? A live birth, an abortion, stillbirths, ectopics, vesicular mole. So irrespective of your pregnancy outcome, whenever a patient is pregnant, it will be counted as gravida. Right? Para. What is para?
It is the number of pregnancies that has crossed the period of viability irrespective of the outcome. Again.
Yes. But excluding the present pregnancy, sometimes we easily deliver as number of previous deliveries. Because whatever the deliveries is what we count. Or number of pregnancies which has been terminated after period of viability, or who has delivered after the period of viability. Usually, what is the period of viability? We take it as period of viability 28 weeks. For all practical purposes, for definition of parity, we take it as 28 weeks. So any pregnancy was crossed 28 weeks, when the patient is delivered, it comes under parity, right? Okay,
Yes,
the next one is abortion. So what is the cutoff to define abortion? How many weeks?
20 weeks.
Less than
20. There is a difference. Some people say mostly we include the 20. Some WHO even says 22 or something. So that viability definition is also variable. Your RCOG considers 24 as viable. Okay, so anything cross 24, they include as parity. For all, for your level, you'll just keep it as 20. Okay. So, and what is term? What is the gestational age where you call it as term?
37 completed weeks.
Excellent. What does that mean? So 37 weeks plus 6 days, almost your 38 crossing or 37 is completed. That is called as term. Okay, so anything before 37 is preterm. Okay, what is post-term?
Beyond 42
After
weeks.
42.
Excellent. After 42 weeks is called as post-term. Okay, so previously we had the term of post-dated. Nowadays we don't call post-dated, we call it as prolonged pregnancy if it crosses more than 40 weeks. Yes? Okay, so now let us give an example. A patient who has had 2 abortions, 1 ectopic pregnancy, 1 twin birth, and 1 live birth. Can you give me the score now? Gravida, para, live, and abortions. Patient has 2 abortion, 1 ectopic, 1 twins, okay, and 1 live birth. I didn't get that. And she's now
G5,
again pregnant.
G6, P2, L3,
G6,
Yes,
P2, L3, A2.
and ectopic one. Right?
Yes, G6, ma'am.
Yes, G6, P2,
P2,
because she has had
L3,
delivered twice. 1 is
L3.
stillbirth, 1 is a twins.
Okay.
Okay, if it is stillbirth, we
L2.
will take it as 2. L2 only, those are the twins. If we give it as
L2.
1 live birth, we'll take it as L3. Let us keep it simple, it is live birth. Okay, so she'll be G6, P2,
P2,
live
L3,
3, abortion 2, ectopic 1. So
ectopic.
what is the thing which you have to, agree here is your twins will be counted as single delivery, single pregnancy. So your gravida and parity will not increase. Only your live birth rate number increases. Is everybody clear with that? Anyone having doubt with that?
no ma'am.
Perfect. So now what is called as primigravida and what is multi? So anyone who's pregnant for the first time, we call her as primi. And one who has already had a
More
delivery and
than
she's
one.
delivering more than second time she's pregnant, we call as multi. What is grand multi?
More than 5.
Excellent. Anyone who has had more than 5 pregnancies, then we call her as grand multi. Okay. So what is booked? So the next history which you're going to tell is she's a booked and an immunized case. So what is the meaning of booked?
At least 3 visits in
Yes,
her.
that is the minimum requirement. To call it a booked cases, so complete your sentence. She should have at least 3 visits.
With
When should the visits be?
in each trimester.
No. Actually, a minimum of 2 visits in the 3rd trimester.
Okay, ma'am.
So 1 visit in the first 2 trimesters and there's at least 2 visits in the 3rd trimester. We call her a booked case. Okay. But what is the ideal amount of visits? So how often should we actually call the patient? When should we
4
first call the patient? Ideal circumstances. We are not talking about the minimum. What is the ideal circumstances? When should she come and tell us immediately? When should she come as early as
Up
5,
to
6, 7,
28
8?
weeks, once in 4 weeks, ma'am.
Excellent. So up to 28 weeks, we call her once in 4 weeks. And after 28 to 36, we call her fortnightly, which is once in 2 weeks. After 36, we call her weekly. Okay, so this makes up to a visits of 13 to 15 visits in each pregnancy. This is the minimum which is expected from the mother, like, ideal. We are not in the idealistic world, but this is the ideal amount of visits. Okay, so at least what is the WHO's recommendations for the visits? When all should a patient come? At least how many visits according to WHO?
Minimum
Four
of 4
visits.
visits.
Minimum of 4 visits. Excellent. So the initial visit, it should be timed between 8 to 12 weeks, which is the dating visit. And the second one, it is between 24 weeks, maybe in and around 22 to 24. And third and fourth visit is one is around 32 and the other one is nearing term, which is around 38. This is the 4 basic visits your WHO requires. Okay. So what is the booking visit mean?
The first visit, she comes
Yes,
after
the
UPT. ma'am.
first visit
Positive.
after, like, your patient comes and meets you, that is the booking visit. So what are all the things which we should do in a booking visit?
Basic height, weight.
Yes.
If one,
So you'll examine her. Before examination, you will go with the history. History is very, very important, because from the history, you will identify the risk factors. And if a patient is low risk, so the basic amount of visits are going to be less. If your patient is a high risk, you call her frequently. So that is determined when your risk factors are established, right? And then you will counsel her. Then you will assess what all the drugs she's taking, and you will give her folic acid when she initially comes, and you will do the baseline investigations. So what are all the investigations you want to do on the first visit?
Hemoglobin estimation.
Hemoglobin estimation, yes.
PC, urine routine, ultrasound,
Urine routine,
ultrasound,
ultrasound,
grouping.
blood grouping,
doping
RH typing.
RS typing.
Yeah, and then we all do HIV, HBs, AG, and DDRL. Okay, that
Serology.
is usually done in your first visit, right?
OGCT.
OGCT, very good. So now coming, like, do we do every patient OGCT on the first visit? Or do we, take a chance, or do we define patients?
No, ma'am. Yes, we have to do it, ma'am. The first visit is
Ideally, you are supposed to do, actually what we do is a GTT. It is OGTT, okay? But some people have the habit of calling it as OGCT. Let us keep it as DIPSI test. So what is your DIPSI sugar test mean? Anyone?
irrespective of the food intake, we have to take
Irrespective of the
75 grams
last meal time, yes.
75 grams of glucose has to be given in 200 ml of water.
Yes.
And we have to take the blood glucose after 2 hours.
Very good.
If it is
So
more than 140,
yes.
we'll consider her as GDM, and we have to proceed.
Yes. So, I mean, like, what is it different from your OGTT is your OGTT is done in a fasting state. So you ask the patient to give a fasting sample, and then you give 75 grams of glucose, and then you do the test 1 hour and 2 hours. That is your OGTT. Your DIPSI test, some people call it as OGCT, but mostly we consider it as OGTT. So where you do is you give them a glucose to drink, irrespective of a meal. So even if she's had her meal and come, you ask her to drink glucose, and after 2 hours you take the test. If it is more than 140, GDM. If it is more than 200, you consider it as diabetic. And if it is less than that, you reassure them, right? Okay, so fine. Dating scan. When do you want to do a dating scan? Ideal circumstances. Dating.
Within 12 weeks. 9 weeks.
9 to 11.
8
Up.
to 11 weeks.
Yes. 8 to 11 weeks. Yes. Up to 12 is also okay. So first trimester, usually less than 8, it is very difficult to determine your dating. So after 8, you take it. 8 to 11 or 12. So some people directly go for your NT screening. So what is your NT test? When can it be done? NT scan?
11 to 14 weeks.
Yes, it can be done at 11 to 14 weeks. So mostly people try to club that. So if you want a single scan, which can be done in the first trimester, you can do it around 12 weeks or 11 weeks, where you can finish your dating as well as you can do your NT screen, right? Okay. So after your NT screening scan, what else do you want to do for the patient? Along with the scan test, anything can be done?
Double marker.
Double marker. So what are all the, blood markers included with double marker?
Beta HCG and
Yes. What is PAPE?
So the
pregnancy associated
Placental protein A.
plasma protein.
Placental protein A. Okay. So it is like a double marker. So where it will give you a risk for Down syndrome. Okay. So along with PAPE, like, what are the information you can get it from PAPE?
It's a predictor of preeclampsia.
Very good. So which one is the predictor? If it is low or high?
PAPI more
Low or high?
high.
No, low PAPI. Low PAPI is the predictor for preeclampsia, your IUGR, your placental insufficiency. So all your complication can be predicted with PAPI. Okay. So they give a value in moms, which is multiples of median, and a value of less than 0.4 moms. We take it as low PAPI. Okay. So that is the additional benefit of PAPI other than predicting Down syndrome. Okay. Okay. So immunization. When do you want to give the immunization for the patient? What are the immunization you can give in pregnancy?
TT.
DT.
TT, DT, what
DT.
else?
DT.
Yes. So you can give TT, you can give DT, you can give TDAP. Okay. So anyway you want to, you can give it. So I mean, like usually previously we used to give it in 3rd and 5th month. And nowadays, like some people, they give it in the first booking visit and the second dose after 4 weeks. And some people give it near term. In either way, it's not wrong. Okay? Fine. So what is the difference between these three? TT, DT and TDAP. So TT is only tetanus toxoid. DT, it contains diphtheria. And TDAP, it contains a acellular pertussis. Okay. Okay. So TDAP, usually we don't give it in government hospital yet, but most of the private institutions, we have started giving TDAP. So you should know that there's something called TDAP is there, right? Okay. So when can the TDAP be given? Between 27 to 36 weeks. So it can't be given in the first trimester. Okay. Okay. So now coming to LMP and then EDD. How do you calculate EDD?
7 days and 9 months, ma'am.
Yes.
If it's a
What
regular
is that rule called?
Nagel's rule.
Nagel's rule.
Yeah. So Negley's rule. So it is 9 months plus 7 days. Or you go back by 3 months and add 7 days, right? Okay. So for like, it is applicable only when the patient has regular cycles.
Regular cycles.
Okay. How many % of the patient will deliver on this EDD?
4%.
4%.
Yes. So it is only 4% will deliver on this. So most of the time they can deliver before EDD or after that. Okay. Fine. So if a patient has irregular cycles, so how do you calculate EDD? Irregular cycles.
Using ultrasound. EDD.
Yes. So if you want to calculate by corrected EDD, what you can do?
If it's a shorter cycle, how many days we have to ask and we have to reduce that. We have
Okay.
to
For
add-
So
example,
you
if it's a
calculate
12 days.
Yes. So up to 2 weeks, you can calculate from the, I mean, like cycle length, you can add it to your EDD, right? Okay. So that can be done, but that is no more needed. We all do a ultrasound and then we give the EDD. Nobody adds to the dates by counting the days. We do an ultrasound. So that is the importance of your dating ultrasound. Okay. So now coming to present complaint. So whenever your patient comes to the complaint, you will start elaborating the complaint about the onset, duration, severity, aggravating, relieving factor, which is similar to your medicine history. There is no differentiation with that. And I mean, like, you know, then coming to the history of present pregnancy. Okay. So years after marriage, why should you know about her married life? How many years she's been married?
To know if it is precious baby.
Yes. So one thing which most of the examiners does not agree is every pregnancy is precious. Okay. Just because a woman is married 10 months, it doesn't mean that the pregnancy is not precious. Okay. So you just say that maybe like they would have undergone some, I mean, like, you know, your ART procedures or fertility treatment, infertility treatment, that is okay. But we should not, I mean, like some examiners are not very happy with the term called precious pregnancy, because every pregnancy is precious, right? So the one thing is, and another history, if she has a long gap, then the other history which you should ask is any contraception, or are they postponing the, pregnancy? Why should you know that? History of contraception. Because suppose if they have taken occipals, your dating may not be correct. So in order to know the dating, you should know. It should be like 3 months. You should not be occipals and all those things. You should be there in the history. Correct? Okay. So when coming to first trimester history, what are all the things you want to know in the first trimester history?
When was the UPT?
When was the
positive,
pregnancy
whether taken
confirmed? How was it
pregnancy
confirmed? So
confirmed.
UPT, when was it positive? And whether the pregnancy was confirmed by scan. Okay. What else?
Nausea, vomiting.
Nausea, vomiting. Okay. Then?
Hyperemesis gravidarum.
Yes.
Fever, rash, bleeding, PV.
Okay. So now coming to fever with rash. What is the importance of fever with rash?
Measles.
Measles, yes.
Rubella. Malaria.
Rubella. More importantly, we are worried about rubella. Why? Why are we worried about rubella?
Congenital rubella.
Okay. So
IUGR.
rubella in what weeks is very teratogenic? First trimester. Okay, whenever it comes in the first trimester. Okay, a patient, she comes to you, she says, I had fever with rash in the first trimester. You are checking for rubella. Her rubella IgM is positive. What are you going to do? Pregnant women, now she's coming to you, maybe say around some 14 weeks now, and she had a history of rubella with this IgM positive. What do you want to do?
Vaccination.
Day. Pregnant rubella aidcha.
Terminate the baby.
You don't give it in pregnancy. Okay? So pregnancy aiduthanale rubella vaccine no role, because rubella vaccine is a live vaccine. You don't give it in pregnancy. Correct now?
Yes, ma'am.
So she is rubella positive. So any patient who comes with a history of rubella positive in first trimester, you are supposed to do MTT. Point clear?
Yes,
Rubella in first trimester, because it is very, very teratogenic. They can have microcephaly, cataract, calcification in the brain and all those things, and the baby is going to have a very great morbidity. So, and sometimes these limb deformity and other things, you're not going to allow the pregnancy to prolong if a patient has had rubella. So that is why your history is important if you ask. Correct? Okay. So a patient, she's gone to a fertility clinic. She has taken a rubella vaccine. What is a rubella vaccine? Live vaccine. Okay. And after the rubella vaccine, she has conceived. So how much time will you ask the patient not to conceive after the vaccination?
3 months.
3 months, ma'am.
1 month. Your CDC guidelines, it just says 1 month. Okay. So 1 month is good enough. Okay. Your patient is conceived after vaccination. What are you going to do? எனக்கு தெரியாது, வேற யாராவது கேளுன்னு சொல்லிட்டு ஓடி போயிருவோம். அப்படியா? After vaccination, if a patient conceives, nothing. You just reassure them and tell them it's nothing is going to go wrong. You continue with the pregnancy. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Infection vanda, termination. Vaccination kapro, if she conceives now, nothing to be done, reassurance. Okay? Super. If a bleeding PV. Why is bleeding PV in the first trimester important?
Threatened
Abortion.
Threatened abortion. Okay, what is the importance of threatened abortion? Usually they can have preterm labor. Sometimes they can have IUGRs also. So that is why that history is important. Okay, va. And always we have that history taking of exposure to radiation. So how many rats in pregnancy is safe? எவ்வளவு வரைக்கும் safe? 5 rats வரைக்கும் exposure, actually it's safe. And you know how much does an X-ray cost? Radiation exposure? X-ray radiation exposure?
Don't know, ma'am.
Find out. It is very less. It is hardly 0.1 or 0.5 rads. So if a patient, she comes back to you and says that I had an X-ray taken when I'm pregnant, so what are we going to do? Reassure.
Reassure.
We are not going to do anything. And X-ray will not cause any further, because previously, old days, the X-rays were very, very strong. Recent X-rays does not have so much of radiation exposure. So you reassure the patient, right? Okay. Second trimester history. So first thing you're going to ask is immunization, then quickening. What is the importance of quickening? Epithelium, usually.
20 weeks.
Yeah, if it
Primary
is 20
20
for
weeks.
a primary and 18 for a multi. But usually it is well seen only if the woman is thin. So if a woman is on heavier weight, obese, now she will, feel the movement only later. Okay. So the importance of second trimester scan. What are all the things you can do in the second trimester scan? What is that scan called?
Anomaly scan.
Anomaly scan. Some people call it as targeted imaging. Okay. So what are all the structures we can pick it up in second trimester scan?
Femoral bone.
Biparietal
Okay, one is biometry. Biometry is your BPD, HC, SC, and FL. Let us come back to anomaly. What are all the anomaly? Adukku munadi we have missed one point. First trimester, what are all the anomalies that can be picked up? Anencephaly. Very good. Then
Long bones defect.
Down syndrome.
long bone defect is too early in the first trimester. Downs if you have some NT increased, abdi sollala, nasal bone absent, konjam you can think of. Anything else?
Spina bifida.
Spina bifida, you can pick it up. Usually in the first trimester, you should pick it up. So, adu panala, and anything like your omphalocele or gastroschisis, after or 11-12 weeks, it's abnormal. Usually, your umbilical hernia madri, konja omphalocele up to 11 weeks is normal, but adukapram vanda it is abnormal. So those things you can actually pick up, and sometimes you have that big bladder, megacystitis, that also you can pick it up. Okay. So first trimester cardiac anomaly is very difficult to detect. Some experts still do that. So when it comes to anomaly scan, what are all the organs which we can see? Brain pakala, oralavukku fine, heart pakala, lungs pakala, where?
Facial defects. Cleft lip, cleft palate.
Cleft palate, facial defects pakala, limb anomalies pakala, bladder pakala, your stomach pakala. What are all the things which you cannot see by scan? என்ன பார்க்க முடியாது ஸ்கேன்ல?
Functional defects.
Yes, functional defects கண்டிப்பா பார்க்க முடியாது. Even most of your bowel defects is sometimes difficult to see. Okay va, like atresia கண்டுபிடிச்சிரலாம், sometimes you cannot see. Fine. Okay, so other than anomaly scan, you will do your GTT. Usually what time is the time when we do GTT?
24 to 28 weeks.
24 to 28 weeks. Why is that period taken as 24 to 28 is the period taken for either GTT? Because that is the period for maximum insulin resistance. Right? Your placental hormones are at peak at that level. So, on the region, you have your maximum insulin resistance. So, what are all the hormone which causes insulin resistance?
Human placental lactose.
Yes, most important is your HPL, your human placental lactogen. Your other things is your cortisol, maybe sometimes they say progesterone, your estrogen. All hormones are diabetogenic. Okay. Third trimester. So, what are all the important histories you should take in third trimester? Bleeding, leaking, pain, or perceiving fetal movements. So, very important. Either you will follow for every patient. Okay. What is excellent dating? Dating, when do you call it excellent dating? A patient who had regular cycles and a first trimester scan confirming the growth of the fetus, you usually consider them as like excellent dating. Okay. What is the importance of consanguinity? Marital history la?
Chromosomal abnormalities.
Chromosomal abnormalities, especially if they are relative, first or second degree consanguinity, abdina, you should know. Okay. Obstetric history. Obstetric history, your previous obstetric history is very, very important. Primary eduvum irukadhu mattadula. Okay. If a patient has had abortion, what are all the things you will ask in a patient who had history of abortion?
Gestational age at which abortion has occurred.
Yes, age at which the abortion has occurred. Okay.
Whether it was spontaneous or
Spontaneous or induced?
painful or painless.
What difference is it?
Whether it
அப்ப
was
எந்த ஏஜ்ல
certified
அது
or
வந்து
not.
இம்பார்ட்டன்ட்? பெயின்ஃபுல் ஆர் பெயின்லெஸ் அப்படின்றது. You are partially correct. If you not complete the statement, be correct. Complete it. Painless abortion. What is
Dilation at second trimester.
very true? So a painless abortion at second trimester, it signifies it is
Cervical incompetence.
cervical incompetence. Excellent. So, but all first trimester abortions are painful. So only in the second trimester you will ask painless, painful. Okay. Then, whether she had very excessive bleeding, she needed blood transfusion for that, whether any surgical method was needed to do, any DNC was done, and very, very important is sometimes if a patient says, 2 மாசம் periods தள்ளி போயிடுச்சு, அதுக்கப்புறம் அதுவே தானே abortion ஆயிடுச்சு. Will you take this as abortion?
No, ma'am. Only certified.
Only certified abortions will be taken as abortions. Okay, so sometimes it can be still only at delayed periods. It need not be abortion at all. So only certified abortion, you will take it as abortions. Okay, a patient is having ectopic. What are all the history which will say that this pregnancy is ectopic?
History of amenorrhea will be there.
Yeah, okay.
Pain after
UPT weak positive.
No, UPT can be still good positive also. At what level of beta HCG or UPT will be positive? 50. Even at 50 value of your this one, UPT will be positive. That is the sensitivity. Okay. So in ectopic also it will be positive. So weak positive doesn't define it as ectopic. Anything else? One is pain. A patient with period of amenorrhea with pain. Second one is bleeding. And more important is the past history suggesting tubal damage. So what are all the history you will want?
PID.
Excellent. PID. Then
TB, genital TB.
very good. Genital TB.
Tubal surgery history.
Excellent. So if a patient, she comes back, she says, I have done a sterilization, I have done a tubal tester, and then now she's coming back and saying that she is pregnant, having a UPT positive, your suspicion should go towards a ectopic pregnancy, right? Any tubal surgery, including tubal recanalization, tubal cannulation, anything, any tubal surgery or PID involving the tubes or ectopic, then you consider, I mean like, or a previous ectopic, the chance of recurrent ectopic is very high. So you will consider it as ectopic pregnancy, right? Okay. So when does the hydatiform mole be diagnosed? Previously, how do they diagnose? Vesicular mole.
Gestational age, the fundal height will be more than the gestational age.
Yes. So
Hyperemesis
previously
will be
we
there.
did not have this early trimester scans. So that time we diagnose it very late when the gestational age, like, occurs after 16 weeks, 18 weeks. The fundal height will be very high. They will have hyperemesis because of increased beta HCG and then passage of vesicles and all those things. Now we have our scans, and the scan, what does scan show?
No storm appearance.
No storm appearance. You have multiple vesicle-like pattern in the this one. Okay, if a patient has a fetus along with a part of the placenta showing the storm appearance, what is it called?
Partial mole.
Yes. So complete mole will have a full snowstorm appearance, whereas you have a baby and the snowstorm, then you know it is partial mole. Okay. So then coming to a previous pregnancy, when it is delivering, what are all the things you want to know when a patient is delivering? Previous delivery, not an abortion, delivery.
Mode of delivery.
Excellent. Mode of delivery, whether it is normal or cesarean. Okay. So if it is cesarean, then normal, you want to know whether she went into spontaneous labor or whether it is induced. And once it is induced, how she delivered, whether she delivered naturally or she needed some instrumentation, and whether it was term or preterm, what was the birth weight of the baby, right? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
If it is an LSCS, you want to know the indication why the LSCS was done, how was the post-op period, whether she had a infection, whether she recovered very well, and all those things. Okay. So I think now with history, most of the thing we have completed. Your past history includes all the medical disorders which you should know. Family history, what all you should know in an obstetric patient. Family history for an obstetric patient.
History of any
Diabetic.
genetic,
Yes. First, you have to know whether the parents are diabetic, hypertensive, because you know that the risk factor is going to be there in the pregnancy. And then, yes, genetic disorders, I agree. Anything else?
Twins.
Twins, very good. So, and which type of twins is more common in the family? Chalo. So, if a patient comes and says, okay, a patient comes and tells you, I have a sister who has undergone IVF and she has twins. Is it of any value to us?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
True. ART becoming twins is not of value in the history. Okay. So coming to examination, and before that, first thing is general examination. So I'm not going to talk about all the medical part of it. You should know very well how to look for pallor. How do you look? Where all you look? Can we just go a little fast? Pallor.
Yes, ma'am. Tip of tongue. Lower
Okay.
parietal conjunctiva.
Yes.
Lower palpebral conjunctiva.
Yes.
Nail
Nails,
beds.
palm soles. Nail beds, your palms and soles. Where else?
facial pallor,
Yeah, that is when it is severe. Anything else? Lips, sometimes they look very pale also. And many of your examiners really like to know that answer, that your vagina, when we do PD, your vagina itself will look very pale. Okay, it will not look that healthy pink color will not be there. It will be like whitish kind of color will be there when they do a pervaginal examination. Though you are not supposed to do, but suppose if your examiner says, what else, then you can say this. Your vagina will look pale. Okay, fine. So after a pallor, what else? The second one is icterus. Where all you look for icterus?
Upper bulbar conjunctiva.
Yes. Conjunctiva. Then
Palm and soles.
yeah, palms and soles, your soft palate. Then your lower part of the tongue. There are the areas you look for icterus. Okay, a pregnant woman, she's having icterus. What are all the things you will think of?
Hemolytic anemia.
Very good. Hemolytic anemia. Then hepatitis.
HELLP syndrome.
HELLP syndrome.
HELLP syndrome.
These are the three things which causes obvious jaundice. Okay, there are other diseases which are really rare, but at least these things you should know. Okay, so jaundice, pallor, then
Cyanosis.
yes. Where will you see cyanosis?
Club.
Which diseases? Heart disease.
Heart disease. Lung.
Where else? Yeah, lung diseases. Even when it is causing like lot of hypoxia, you can still have cyanosis. Okay, clubbing. So clubbing, which diseases will you have clubbing?
Cyanotic heart disease.
Yes. What else? Anything else causes clubbing? Any other nail changes will you see in pregnancy? Any nail changes, particular in pregnancy with some disease? Yes. Very good. Sorry? Yes. Koilonychia, your spoon-shaped nails, which is particularly seen in iron deficiency. Very good. Okay, so these are the things which should look short. Okay. So once you're there, your general examination you've done, then you see your weight of the patient. Why is weight important? Weight.
Adequate weight gain.
So what is the adequate weight gain in pregnancy?
9 to 11 kg.
Is it for all? So your sentence should be the weight gain in pregnancy depends upon the pre-pregnancy body weight or your pre-pregnancy BMI, right? If your patient is a small built patient, her always pregnancy BMI is calculated from the pre-pregnancy weight. It is not from today's weight. Okay? Because for example, she's gaining 10 kgs and now if you calculate BMI, it will be 3 or more points higher. So you're supposed to calculate BMI from the pre-pregnancy weight. So if her BMI is around 18, 18.5, then it is low BMI. We advise a little more of weight gain to her. You can gain up to 14 kgs, maybe even 16. And if her BMI is in the normal range, the normal amount of weight gain is 10 to 12. If she's on the higher range, you ask her to around 10 kgs. And if she's in the obese range, more than 30, the weight gain should be less than 8, maybe 7. Now, the recent guidelines is coming as no weight gain recommendations. That is a recent Royal College recommendation that if a patient is very obese, then there is no weight gain which is recommended, right? Okay. So now coming to your obstetric examination. So inspection, what all should you see? Inspection in an obstetric examination. How do you say about inspection?
Abdomen longitudinally enlarged.
Very good. Abdomen longitudinally enlarged.
Umbilicus. Stria gravidarum.
Yeah, umbilicus in the
Visible
midpoint or
pulsation.
anything pushed somewhere.
Linea
Then-
nigra.
Linea nigra and stria gravidarum. What is linea nigra?
A dark line extending from umbilicus to pubic symphysis.
No, it can start. Sometimes it can be upper also. Okay, linea nigra is a dark black line which will be there in the midpoint. Like sometimes it can be from xiphisternum to pubic symphysis. That is your linea nigra. Then you have your stria gravidarum because of the stretching of the skin of the abdomen. You see stria, which is common in pregnancy. Okay, anything else you want to mention in the inspection for the pregnant women?
Previous scar. Visible pulsation.
Yes. Scar you
Scars.
should know, especially if she's a previous cesarean, what kind of scar, whether it is a midline scar or a paramedian or is it a transverse scar. Very good. What else?
Umbilicus status.
Umbilical status, whether it is flushed or whether it is maybe like you have an umbilical hernia, you can mention that. Okay. So these are the things which you see in inspection. Okay. What else? After inspection?
Palpation.
Palpation. So what do you do in palpation?
Fundal grip. Fundal height.
Fundal height.
Yes. First is what we do is your fundal height. How do you do the fundal height?
From xiphisternum, we have to go down, and the first resistant felt is the fundal height, ma'am.
Xiphisternum, you go down. Yes. That is, you are telling about a fundal grip where you're going to examine or you're seeing the fundal height. Okay. Before doing the fundal height, what is the basic things you will tell the patient?
Empty the bladder.
Very true. All obstetric examination, okay, are done with empty bladder. So this has to be told. So after emptying the bladder and after correcting dextrorotation, what does it mean?
Sigmoid.
What is
Uterus will be
dextro?
rotated to the
Right side.
Right side. So usually because of the sigmoid colon, your uterus will be little tilted to the right. Okay. So you are supposed to correct the dextrorotation and then see the fundal height. Okay. So can we go to the my slides? Sorry, I have a very few slides. So sorry, can you share my slides, please?
Ma'am, 1 minute, ma'am.
Actually, I should bring some patients. Sorry. So this is the first image which I wanted to show. Okay. So, I mean, like, can you see the second one, which is incorrect? So this is the dextro-rotated uterus where there is a small right side tilt. Okay, so this right side tilt is called as dextrorotated uterus. Okay, so what you're supposed to do is correct this one by pushing the uterus so that the uterus moves towards the midline, and then you see the fundal height. Got it? So how do you do that? With your right hand, you push the uterus to the midline, and the left hand ulnar surface is kept over the the upper margin of the uterus to measure the fundal height. Yes. So first the patient is made to lie down, and before that your patient position should be lying down with the thighs partially flexed. Okay, comfortably flexed thighs. Bladder should be emptied. Your dextrorotation should be corrected, and then your uterus is palpated to the fundus. And the second thing what we do is your symphysiofundal height. Can anyone tell me what is symphysiofundal height? So this is measured from the highest portion of the uterus. This is non-corrected, sorry. So highest portion of the uterus. So usually you measure from the mobile part to the fixed part, which is your pubic symphysis. So we measure from the top to the bottom with your inch tape. Correct? Yes. So, and your inch tape will be, inches will be facing forward, and your centimeter side backwards. Why should that be done? The inches should be facing towards you. Yes. I thought I got the answer.
To avoid error, bias.
Very good. Avoiding bias. For example, like the symphysiofundal height in centimeters will be equivalent to the gestational age in weeks. So you know that the patient is 32 weeks, for example, and you are going to go inside and proceed with the examination. So if you already know and the fundal height is going to just come to 29, you try to move your fingers little bit and you try to bring it to 32, because, and that is called as bias. Okay. So if you measure it in the inch tape and then see, you will get the correct value. Got it? Any doubt? So first you ask the patient to empty bladder, then she lies down supine with the thigh semi-flexed, and then you correct the dextrorotation, and after that first one you see is the fundal height, where, you know, like with the gestational age that I have the next picture I'll tell you, and then you see the symphysiofundal height with the inch tape. Okay, correct? Got it? Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so this is how we usually calculate the fundal height. So that umbilicus, usually we take it around 20 or 22 weeks. Just about the umbilicus, we take it as 24 weeks. And we usually divide this, the lower part, as 3 equal parts. The xiphisternum is 12, and the next point will be around 16, and this point will be 20. And when you go up, it is 28, 32, and 36. Next slide. So this you'll be knowing, and this is how you measure the fundal height. Okay, and one second. And now, and this I've already told you. So the highest part of the uterus, you'll be measuring your symphysiofundal height, and you start measuring from the mobile part, which is the topmost part. So you start measuring from here, and then you go down and you measure till the symphysis pubis. Next slide, please. So, oh, sorry. Okay, so this is the next chunk is Leopold summaries. So we know that we have like 4 Leopold's maneuver, 1, 2, 3, and 4. This you should all be knowing it. What is the first maneuver called? Fundal grip. So how do you do the fundal grip?
Facing towards the patient.
Yes, excellent. Facing towards the patient's face or towards the patient's side. You always stand on the right of the patient. The moment you go and stand to the left, Many examiners get very irritated and they ask you to come after 6 months. Okay, so always you stand on the right of the patient and you turn yourself so that you face the patient's face. Very good. With 2 hands, okay, and like your palmar surface, you try to hold on the uterus fundus and you see which is the presenting part which you are going to palpate. Okay, your most common presentation is what?
Cephalic breast.
Most common presentation is cephalic, which means head is down. So what will be up? Breech, or the buttock will be up. So your fundal grip, if you have a breech, how are you supposed to say?
Broad, soft.
Broad, soft,
Not independently
Not
ballotable.
not
independently
independently ballotable, which means what? You cannot move the breech away from your back, but you can move the head separately. So that is the difference. So a broad, soft, non-independently ballotable mass is seen on the fundal grip, which is the breech or the buttock of the baby. You don't call it breech because breech means presentation. So you say that is the buttock of the baby. Okay. So the second grip is your umbilical grip. So you put 2 palmar surface of your hand on either sides of the abdomen near the umbilicus and you feel. So whichever side your back is, how do you call that?
Smooth curve.
Smooth
A
curved.
smooth curved surface is seen on the left and a limbus, which is irregular things which is seen on the right. So this is how you say, correct? And this is a smooth surface. So this is the findings which you say in umbilical group. Whichever side your back is, this is the umbilicus, and whichever 2 sides your limbus is there, you're going to feel that. Okay. So this is your third maneuver, which is the first pelvic grip. Okay. What do you explain in first pelvic grip? How are you supposed to do the first pelvic grip? Anyone?
Using right hand.
Yes. Using right hand between your thumb and the other 2 fingers. Even if you use 4 fingers, it's okay. Or 2 fingers is okay. Okay, your index and middle finger and the thumb. You try to hold the fetal part, which is just above the symphysis pubis. Or just above the internal of the lower part, and you try. If it is head, how are we going to explain? A hard, round, independently ballotable structure seen in the lower part of the uterus, probably the head. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That is how you explain the first pelvic grip or the Leopold's third maneuver. Okay, you try to hold the baby's part with the hand, right? And you see and what it is. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so these things we have already explained, and that last slide is the fourth maneuver. How are you going to do the fourth maneuver?
By facing the patient.
Facing towards.
Facing towards
Patient's feet.
excellent. Facing towards patient's feet. So you're no more facing your patient's face. You are turning yourself away and you're going to face the patient's feet. Very, very important. And then with your fingers of both the hands, you will try to hold the head. Maybe all the 4 fingers of both hands, and you will try to hold the presenting part. Okay? So what are all the things you will say in the second pelvic grip?
To confirm the first pelvic grip.
Yes. So whether is it a head or a breech, you're going to say. So it is a head. You're going to confirm with the your second pelvic grip. Anything else?
Head is engaged or not.
Yes.
Attitude of the.
Yes. So what do you mean by attitude?
Well flexed or deflexed or extended.
Yes. So what is the normal attitude of the baby?
Universal flexion.
Universal flexion.
Excellent. Universal flexion. It means there is flexion in every joint of the baby, right? So every joint of the baby is going to be flexed. So whereas there is going to be extended legs, then it is not universal flexion. Same way, if your head is going to get tilted, depending on the degree of extension, you're going to have a difference between your relative position of your sinciput and the occiput. What is sinciput? What is sinciput?
Frontal bone.
Yes. Okay, next time when we bring the fetal skull, we'll start discussing that. So you will change the relative position between sinciput and occiput. And usually your occiput, if it is in the lower level, it means your head is
Flexed.
very good. It's flexed. If your occiput is in the higher level, it means it is deflexed. Okay. So once we bring the fetal skull and other things, you will understand. So before going in all those things, at least we should know what is, what is a lie? What is a lie? L-I-E, lie.
Relationship of the fetus to that of the long axis of the uterus, ma'am.
Yeah. So relationship of the long axis of the fetus to the long axis of the uterus. Some people say it as long axis of spine. Okay. So, what are the two types of lie we know?
Longitudinal transverse.
Longitudinal, transverse, sometimes we even have oblique. Okay, so if the baby is going to be long, head and breech are the same long axis, we call it longitudinal. If it is in the other way around in the y axis, you call it as transverse. Okay, so what is lie? Then what is attitude? We told the relationship of each part of the fetus to one another. What is presentation?
Part of the fetus which occupies the lower.
The part of the fetus which occupies the lower pole of the uterus. So whichever is going to be there in the lower pole is going to be the presentation. So here the head is down. So what is this presentation called?
Cephalic.
Cephalic
Excellent.
presentation.
Cephalic. Suppose if your buttock is down, it's going to be called
Breech
Breech
presentation.
presentation.
Suppose if the baby is going to be lying like this, then it is transverse
Transverse.
lie. What is the
Transverse lie.
presentation?
Shoulder presentation.
Shoulder presentation.
Excellent. So the hand or the hand comes here, so the shoulder will be there in the lower part. Correct? Okay. So because these are the things which you understood there. Okay. So what is the presenting part?
It is that part of the presentation that occupies the lower uterine segment.
Which overlies the internal os.
Internal.
Or when it is like first felt when you do a PD while doing an examination finger. Okay. So this we should know, and you should also know denominator and positions, but that when it comes to pelvis, you should know in detail. Okay. So can we go to the next slide? Okay. So this is how you're going to see. And the only thing which I wanted to know is when your breech is occupying the lower portion. Okay. So then, this is the breech presentation, right? So this is a cephalic and this is a breech presentation. And one more thing, you should know where the FHR will be seen in each. Okay. So usually if the baby is, your baby's back is to this side. So where will the FH be heard in this baby, the first baby?
Left spino-umbilical line.
Umbilical line.
Okay. So whichever side the back is, so in that portion, a line, imaginary line, you join between the anterior superior iliac spine and the umbilicus. Usually a midpoint of this line will be the portion where your FHS will be clearly heard. Understood? Okay. So when it is a breech, usually this portion is the umbilicus. Your FH is slightly heard opposite, just higher to the umbilicus. Okay. Okay, next slide. Next slide, please. So these are the other examinations which I really wanted to show. So this is how you usually see. And sorry, this person is standing on the wrong side. So we already explained the fundal grip with your palmar surface of both the hands. You go and stitch the baby, and your umbilical grip on either sides of the abdomen. You just feel for the baby's parts, whichever side is the back, and then the limbus. Next slide. Next, please. Yeah. And the third pelvic grip, where you hold the baby between your thumb and the two fingers, and you try to see, and you also see whether the baby's head is mobile or whether it is engaged or unengaged. Okay. In a primary, when does the baby get engaged? What is engagement? What is engagement? Anyone? Engagement?
Greatest diameter.
Biparietal diameter of the fetus engaging into the maternal pelvic brim.
So when the engaging diameter, which is the biparietal diameter, crosses the brim, maternal inlet, you call it as engagement. Okay. So usually when does the head engage in a primary and when does it engage in a multi?
Few weeks before in a primary and at the time of labor in a month.
Yes. So in a multigravida, it can still be mobile before labor, and it usually engages during labor. And in a primary, usually the head engages by around 38 weeks. The last 2-3 weeks, by 38, 39, the head has to engage. So if the head is still mobile in a primary, what does it indicate?
CPD.
Yes.
In pregnancy.
Obstructed labor.
No, don't go to big words. Obstructed labor is a very, very big term. And obstructed labor occurs during labor, one thing. So you don't get labor patients during exams. Okay. So you get only patients who come to OPD. No patient walks into a OPD with obstructed labor. Okay. So where does the obstruction occurs in an obstructed labor? Where does the obstruction occur? Which level of the pelvis?
Cavity, pelvic cavity.
Yes, it's the mid cavity. It is not during the inlet. Okay, so inlet, it is only that whether it goes in or it is still up. There can be no obstruction at the level of inlet. Only when it goes and gets caught there in the cavity, we call it obstructed labor. So we just call it as CPD. Okay, a cephalopelvic disproportion. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
So you have to say when you come and talk about first pelvic grip is whether is it a head or the breech. If it is a head, whether it is mobile or whether it is unengaged. Sometimes it can still be engaged. And the attitude, if you want to say in a second pelvic grip, whether your hands are converging or diverging. What does it mean? If your hands are converging during a second pelvic grip, what does it mean?
Head engaged already.
Illa.
Head
See, head
is
vandu
mobile,
totally
not
it is outside. Head is mobile. So that you can go reach below the head. Rendu hand converge agum head mela irunduchina. Okay. When the head is inside, you will not be able to put your fingers inside. So your hands will be diverging. Appada vandu your head is engaged. Okay. It is very difficult to imagine, but once you start seeing patients, it will be easier. Okay. Next, I think we have almost come to the end of the history. Next. Yeah. So this is how you are going to see, and you will insert all your 4 fingers. You can see that the thumb is nowhere around. So your thumb is away. So only these 4 fingers are going to go in. For example, imagine your head is going to go there. Your fingers are going to converge. So this is why your head is mobile. It is above and your fingers are converging. Okay. And if it is, the head has gone deep here inside. Okay. Imagine your head is already gone this much deep inside. When you put your fingers like this, so your one finger will go like that. The other finger will go like that because your head is gone into the pelvis. So this will be diverging. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So next slide, please. I think I've finished that. So this is about attitude. So when it is complete universal flexion. Okay. And this one is the head is little bit of deflection. You can see a gap here, and this is totally deflexed. This is the face presentation. Okay. And this one will be brow. And this is a deflex head. And this is vertex. Okay. So if it is totally complete flexion, your part that will be presenting in the presenting part will be the vertex. And here it will be your occiput. And this will be the presenting part in brow. And this is the face will be the presenting part. So this is about attitude. So when we start taking classes about your other labor, mechanism of labor, what all to see, then we will talk further about these things. So at least now you have understood what is the vertex, your occiput position, and your brow and the face.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So next, I think it's coming to the end of the slide. I think so. Next slide, please. So having told you about auscultation, the spino-umbilical line, you hear that, and in the breech, it is little away from the midline. Okay. So I think that comes to the end of the presentation. So if you have any doubts, we can just proceed with that. Any doubts? Anyone?
One doubt.
Yes.
Abortion, you told now highlighted for molar pregnancy is included in abortion. Whether
Yes.
ectopic is included
No,
in
it's
abortion.
not included in abortion. Sorry. You're taking it wrong. It is included as a part of gravida. Vesicular
Gravida.
mole is a separate entity. You don't take it in abortions.
Abortion. And also ectopic, ma'am.
Ectopic is not
Ectopic
considered in
also-
abortion. Ectopic will be
Abortion.
again separately pointed as, like, it will be G2, P1, L1, ectopic 1. It will not conclude in abortions. Ectopic will be a separate entity.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, if ectopic you don't include in abortions, no. Because it's very, very important, okay? Ectopic we have to know. Once your recurrence is very, very high, and your treatment also modifies according to the previous ectopic or not. So ectopic, you can't take it easily like that. Any doubts? Anything else?
Ma'am, symphysial fundal height, you said, it corresponds in centimeter to the gestational age. Till what
Yes.
weeks it corresponds, ma'am? From what
Till
week to
36,
what
yes.
week?
Till 36. After that, it just falls, like, your uterus falls down to 32 week size. So after that, it doesn't make sense. Up to 36, it corresponds.
Okay. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
And there is also something which we measure is your abdominal girth of the mother. Usually we do it only for the average size mothers. Okay. That is done between 30 to 40 weeks. At 30 weeks, the abdominal girth is around 30 inches. Okay. And otherwise it's 75 centimeters. And at 40 weeks, it's 40 inches or 100 centimeter. And the abdominal girth increases by around 1 inches a week, which is 2.5 centimeter a week. But it is only for average size women. It is not for women who already have a big tummy. Okay.
In exam, we are supposed to do the abdominal girth also, ma'am. In exam.
Not many examiners are not actually asking for it nowadays. But at least you should know that it is there. Abdominal girth will also say about the growth of the baby as well as the liquor. So if there is no doubts, can we wind up with the session?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Chalo then. Thank
Thank
you,
you so much, ma'am.
everyone. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much,
Hopefully you all learned something.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you.